Going into 2006, Ween had been on a real hot streak. After winning critical praise and garnering tens of thousands of new fans with The Mollusk, White Pepper, and Quebec, they had also proven that people would even buy their outtakes with Shinola Volume 1. But after getting more and more sincere as a band, eventually verging on being consistently depressing with Quebec, Ween felt it was time to return to their fun-loving roots and set out to do just that. But would they be able to recreate the magic of a pure guava or chocolate and cheese over a decade later? Or would this trip down memory lane turn out to be a rocky one?
Good songs for Ween.
Oh, we're Ween.
What's a Ween?
We're a band, you know.
Out of nowhere, out of a total musical vacuum, out of total darkness, comes one ray of light. And it's fucking Ween.
In 2006, Ween rented a 200-year-old farmhouse to record demos of around 50 new compositions. And as a result of their choice of setting, the recording conditions were less than ideal. According to Dean, "We wrote and recorded La Cucaracha in a rented, moldy 200-year-old farmhouse in our hometown of New Hope, Pennsylvania. It is one of the most disgusting places I've ever had the displeasure of working, and I'm sure that Jeaner and Andrew Weiss will back me up on that one. None of us will let our kids go there, I'm not lying to you. Right now, 9/6/2007, I have an upper respiratory infection that was initially spawned by working in our black mold-filled studio. Hell, I wouldn't even let my dog crap in that place. After we move out, I hope a tree falls on it, so they have to bulldoze the building to its foundation. Although, the house is already about to cave in on its own." The recording for the album was done on tape, rather than the digital workflow the band had adopted since Chocolate and Cheese, with Dean stating, "I also want to make a special point of mentioning that we recorded this record to tape, 24-track, 2-inch tape. I'm really less than thrilled that most people will probably download 2 tracks from it and listen to it on their iPods." After dozens of hours spent recording, the tracks were then post-mixed by Weiss and mastered by Howie Weinberg.
My name is Howie Weinberg. I am one of the top mastering engineers probably on the planet.
But the first fruits of this labor didn't turn out to be a full studio album. The band made the decision while producing their new full-length album to have the track list be just 13 songs long, due to the length of one track in particular. We'll get to that later. But this left many fully developed songs on the cutting room floor, and the boys were evidently not content to let them become outtakes that would later leak online. The solution was releasing a 5-track EP with 4 of the aforementioned songs, plus a remix of a track from the upcoming album. A taster of sorts for the new era of Ween. On June 19th, 2007, Choco Dog released the Friends EP. The first of the 5 tracks is the titular Friends, which ironically is actually a remix of the original song, which would appear on La Cucaracha. The remix, which was sourced from the demo recorded at the farmhouse, was produced by CJ Stone and DJ Voodoo of, get this, Crazy Frog fame, after Gene had thought out a quote, gay Euro DJ. According to Dean, in an interview with the AV Club, he felt so strongly about doing it that it was like, okay, let's see what happens. I figured in a million years he would never pull it off. Like, find a gay Euro DJ to do it, and it only took him about 5 seconds to find someone. He found the guy that did the Crazy Frog stuff. Then I had to cop to it. It was the first time we ever tried that. It was sort of an experiment, I guess, which I take absolutely no responsibility for. Not only was this version of Friends released by Ween, it was also released by Crazy Frog on Everybody Dance Now. If nothing else, the legacy of the Friends EP is making Gene Ween and Crazy Frog email pen pals, which is pretty cool if you ask me. By the way, thanks to Ben from the Crazy Frog team for getting in touch with me with some insider info about the song. Next is I Got to Put the Hammer Down, a slick electro-punk track with Dean on vocals, reminiscent of something like Johnny on the Spot. It's a fun track, and every time that chorus comes, it hits you like a freight truck. It's also become a mainstay and setlist for the Dean Ween Group. King Billy is a reggae track and a collab with artist King Jammy, Michael McDonald, not that Michael McDonald, and the Firehouse Crew. Ween's attempts at reggae have never been my favorite, but this one isn't terrible. It's not as good as Nicole from Godwin Satan, but it is markedly better than another track we'll get to later. Light Me Up is a Santana-esque Latin rock anthem with one of Ween's most memorable hooks. It captures a lot of the energy of White Pepper's Bananas and Blow, and is a real highlight from this era of the band. Finally, there's Slow Down Boy, a smooth, soulful gay ballad. While recording, Dean uploaded some super choppy footage of Gene performing the vocals to the song on YouTube, providing a rare look into the Ween production process. The EP was originally slated to drop in person at a Ween show on June 8th, before being sold online. But due to printing issues, Friends was pushed to come out concurrently on June 19th. Most fans enjoyed the Friends EP, but saw it as just a warm-up to the real deal that would be the full-length album. And they didn't have to wait long, because 4 months later, on October 23, 2007, Ween released La Cucaracha in a joint drop between Choco Dog and Rounder Records. The reason for co-releasing on Rounder was presumably financial, as producing and shipping tens of thousands of copies of an album is a costly endeavor. According to Diener, this is also our first record on the Rounder label, and I feel obligated to mention how this came to pass. The guy from Rounder drove down to New Hope from Massachusetts and took us to lunch. We've been on a lot of labels the past 23 years and had a lot of lunches, and we've heard a lot of pitches. After making small talk for the first 20 minutes, I finally felt like I should ask him something, anything, since he drove all the way down here. The only thing I could come up with was, are there any other bands on Rounder comparable to Ween? I mean, when I think of Rounder Records, I think of all those Thorogood records, and mostly folk-type stuff. He said, no, not really. We all started laughing, and the decision was made in our minds right there that this was where we needed to be. Later that night, we watched the Red Sox game at our studio, then he drove back to Boston the next day. The track list for La Cucaracha was comprised of 13 of the fully mixed songs, not included on Friends. First, there was Fiesta. Starting with an instrumental track was a first for Ween at that point, and it's a great tone setter for the album. The refrain from the horn section is ridiculously fun, as is the glitchy IDM drum breakdown. Next is Blue Balloon, a silly, bouncy track that feels very SpongeBob. The vocals were originally intended to be lo-fi and brown, but the band later decided to go with more poppy, modern Ween vocals. Next is the original Friends, which was, funnily enough, released after the remix on the titular EP. This version is more stripped down, without the EDM production, and I think we were spoiled by the EP version, frankly, which I find myself coming back to more often. If you're going to go for the chorus, a friend's a friend who knows what being a friend is, talking with a friend, I think you've got to go big, production-wise, to match that absurdity. Object is a Spanish-flavored ballad from the perspective of a psychotic masochist. It feels like it could have been influenced by Dexter, being inside the head of a sociopathic serial killer. Object has a great melody and progression, and features one of my favorite solos from this era of Ween. Learnin' to Love is a country hoedown, akin to Booze Me Up and Get Me High, or I've Got No Dark Side. It's a fun song, but unfortunately features a pretty grating hook, and in my opinion, it's sorely missing the Creek Boys. Next is My Own Bare Hands, a rollicking, hard-rocking Diener track, in the vein of It's Gonna Be a Long Night. Featuring some of the band's funniest and raunchiest lyrics barked through Diener's famous Lemmy impression, My Own Bare Hands consistently ranks among fans' favorite tracks on La Cucaracha, and it's not hard to see why. The Fruit Man is a low-key reggae track, which documents an interaction Gene witnessed in Jamaica, possibly on the vacation that he, Dean, and Kramer took during the pod era. According to Gene, in an interview with Paste by Matthew Snope, I was inspired to write this after our trip to Jamaica. It basically covers a day between the fishermen and the fruit sellers. One would think with two different products they'd get along. And no, they don't. It's a dog-eat-dog world on the beach. People hustling for fruit and fish and fruit. No trust. Okay though, there are never really hard feelings. Next is Spirit Walker, which ended up being one of the most controversial Ween songs for fans. Not because of the composition, performance, or lyrics, but rather the vocal production. On the track, Gene's voice is auto-tuned severely, contrasting harshly with the clean, natural sound of the instrumental. While many see this as an ill-fated foray into production experimentation by Ween and Weiss, there's an argument to be made that the song is a parody of the pop music scene in 2006, when it was becoming commonplace to auto-tune vocals. Either way, regardless of the intention, it is a little difficult to listen to the song, which, knowing Ween, may have very well been the intention. Shame Maker is a silly track that feels like something out of the Pure Guava era, where Gene, in a thick Philly accent, describes therapy as if it's body horror, with lyrics like, "Feel it in the belly like a yellow worm with teeth." I really dig this one, and my hot take is that if this had been released by Sum 41 or Alien Ant Farm, it would have been a top 10 hit. Next is Sweetheart in the Summer, another Diener track. As an aside, if one person was benefiting from this era, it was undoubtedly Diener. After only having one track every other year from the Chocolate and Cheese era through Quebec, Diener had 3 tracks in 2007 alone, those being I Got to Put the Hammer Down, My Own Bare Hands, and of course, Sweetheart in the Summer. True to its title, Sweetheart is a sweet song about young love, backed by orchestral elements. It's just a sincere, good vibes track which acts as the yang to the yin of the crass aggressiveness of Bare Hands.
I'm gonna let you do anything you want to me sexually in this costume. So I'm pretty easy to reach on the...
Lullaby is yet another sweet, soft song, this time featuring the harp in its instrumentation. Lullaby is one of my favorite Gene compositions of all time. It's so calming, and this absolutely should have been promoted as a hit for children's music. Though I guess the lyrics of some of the other tracks earlier in the album probably dissuaded that course of action. Next is Woman and Man, a galloping prog rock epic that clocks in at a monumental 11 minutes. Originally written as a simple 4-minute jam, Woman and Man quickly ballooned in size to become the longest Ween track on a studio album, and is half the length of side 2. The lyrics of Woman and Man detail the creation and evolution of humankind throughout the eons, 2001 style. Again, very prog rock. These guys know how to do a genre pastiche. According to Ween Wiki creator Plump Buck Mulligan from Personal Correspondence, the flute featured on the track was played by Debbie Reichardt, the partner of Andrew Weiss. Finally, there's Your Party, a soothing sax-driven jam about having the best time at a party with the wife. The sax was performed by the late great David Sanborn, who apart from being an accomplished solo artist, had played on tracks by artists like Bruce Springsteen, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, the Rolling Stones, Stevie Wonder, Elton John, the Eagles, and Sting. It's a sweet track, and really that's one of the major themes I would say permeates both Friends and La Cucaracha. Genuine sweetness without a layer of irony. Quebec saw the band expressing sincere heartbreak, and La Cucaracha and Friends saw the band proclaiming genuine joy. In addition to the aforementioned tracks, Ween also released Bag of Fat, a bonus track on the iTunes release of the album. This is a pretty underrated song that I definitely think should have been included on the album, or at least Friends. And if it was cut because the album was too long, well, I think maybe they should have cut Spirit Walker in favor of this one. 2007 really saw the band expanding its scope instrumentally, having EDM production on Friends and Hammer Down, trumpets on Fiesta, an orchestra on Sweetheart in the Summer, harp on Lullaby, flute on Woman and Man, and of course saxophone on Your Party. Not only was it one of their most diverse albums sonically, rivaled only by Chocolate and Cheese, it also saw the band tackle a wider breadth of topics lyrically, ranging from summer love to serial killers, macho aggression to therapy, and the entire history of humanity. While many, myself included, put La Cucaracha and Friends lower on their Ween rankings than their earlier releases, there's no doubt that there's a lot to love about 2007 as a Ween fan. And though the reception to the material was more lukewarm than it had been for previous album cycles, we had no idea just how good we had it. Surprisingly, based on how I've described it previously, La Cucaracha actually fared okay in the music press. Stephen Irwin of AllMusic gave the album 4 stars, the AV Club gave it an A-, Blender gave it 3.5 stars, and Time Off gave it a startling 5 out of 5. However, several publications were more mixed on the album, with Pitchfork giving it a 6.2, NME giving it a 5 out of 10, and Drowned in Sound slapping the album with a 4 out of 10. The general consensus for fans at the time seemed to be that they enjoyed lots of songs from the era, but found the releases as a whole to be disappointing in comparison to Quebec, White Pepper, and the Mollusk. However, many have re-evaluated Friends and La Cucaracha in a more favorable light during this drought of new Ween material. So despite not getting a royal welcome, so to speak, the 2007 releases didn't seem like a total bust for Ween. Fans were definitely hungry for more, and were looking to the horizon for the band's next release. But I haven't been totally honest with you. In this video, I've been acting like things were business as usual for Ween. Like this was just another album, and that the next episode would be yet another success story. But in truth, trouble was brewing behind the scenes. After playing with each other, touring with each other, and even occasionally living with each other, Gene and Dean Ween had begun to grow apart. There's a quote that, to this point, I've left out of the episode. One that shocked me when I read it. In a 2014 American Songwriter interview with Jeaner by Chris Rutledge, Gene was quoted as saying, "I don't think I could pick one record over another. Except La Cucaracha. That was a big piece of shit. I think the songs on it were good, or a bunch of songs, but overall, that was a big clue. Mickey and I were finito." As the Friends and La Cucaracha era came to a close, a rift was growing in the band, and great adversity was on the road ahead. It remained to be seen, could the Ween brothers weather the storm, or would this be the end of one of the greatest stories in experimental music?
Yo, 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 what's up, party people? Yo, 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 yo. I'm Dean Ween of Ween.
And I'm Gene Ween of Ween.